The heart monitor beeped steadily, a constant reminder I was still here. I lay in the hospital bed, the 4 dripping slowly into my arm, my body aching from surgery 3 days ago. I didn't want the procedure, but I had no choice, it was do it or risk worse. My body was healing, but my mind wouldn't rest. I stared at the ceiling, trying to ignore the pain, when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Dad. I hesitated. Greg and I hadn't been close in years. He only called when he needed something, and I wasn't in the mood for his excuses. But something made me answer. "Hey, kiddo," he said, his voice too casual. "How you feeling?" I closed my eyes. He never asked how I was, it meant he wanted something. "I'm fine," I said flatly. "What's up?" A pause, then the words that sent a chill through me. "So, I used your college fund to settle some debts. It's not like you needed it, right?" I sat up fast, pain shooting through my side. I clutched my ribs, breath catching. "What?" My voice was calmer than I felt, like I was watching this happen to someone else. "Yeah, well, things got tight," he said, like it was nothing. "You've already done some college. You're smart, you'll figure it out." I'd been saving since I was 16, scholarships, part-time jobs, tutoring gigs, every dollar set aside to finish my degree without debt. That fund was my ticket to my last 2 years, my independence, my future. And he took it. My fingers tightened around the phone, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. "How much is left?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Another pause. Nothing. It's all gone." I exhaled slowly, my mind racing but my voice steady. "I see." Silence, then a chuckle from him. "That's my boy, always practical. No point getting upset, what's done is done, right? You can't get it back, so might as well move on." "Move on?" I glanced around the hospital room, the sterile walls, the bruises on my arm from needles. That money wasn't just tuition, it was my freedom. And he'd stolen it as casually as if he'd borrowed my car. "Good luck with that," I said, my voice cold. He laughed. "See, that's the attitude. Anyway, gotta run, meeting friends for drinks. We'll catch up when you're out, yeah?" Then he hung up. I stared at the phone, the room too quiet now. I should have been panicking, crying, but I wasn't. Because I knew something Greg didn't, I wasn't a kid anymore, and I wasn't letting him get away with this. I opened my banking app. As expected, the account was empty, zero balance. He'd taken every cent. But he forgot one thing, I'd always been careful. Growing up with a father like Greg taught me never to trust, never to rely. I had backup accounts he didn't know about, a safety net for moments like this. I lay back down, the pain from my surgery fading as a new fire burned in my chest. This wasn't over. Greg thought he could steal from me and walk away. He thought I'd roll over, like I always had. But not this time. I wasn't screaming, wasn't begging, I was planning. I'd make sure he regretted ever thinking he could take what was mine. I closed my eyes, the heart monitor still beeping. My body might be weak right now, but my mind was sharp. Greg had no idea what was coming. He'd taken my future, but I'd take it back, and more. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about showing him I wasn't the kid he could use anymore. I was ready to fight, and I'd win. The moment I got home from the hospital, I didn't waste a second. I wasn't going to sit around feeling sorry for myself, that was the old Matt, the one who thought family meant blind trust. Not anymore. I limped to my desk, still sore from surgery, and opened my laptop. The hospital discharge papers sat untouched in my bag, this was my real priority now. First, I logged into my bank account. It was empty, just as I'd seen, but I wasn't checking the balance. I was looking at the withdrawals, the timestamps, the pattern. Greg had been careful, draining the account bit by bit over months, staying just under the fraud alert threshold. Classic Greg, always slimy, always just out of reach. I took screenshots of everything, every transaction, every move he'd made. Next, I opened my email and pulled up my old scholarship records, proof I'd earned every cent in that account. Then I sent a request to the bank for an official statement of all activity over the past year. Greg had made a big mistake. Sure, he was a co-signer, but that money was mine, and banks didn't take kindly to financial abuse. I could almost hear his voice. It's just money, kiddo, don't get worked up, but this wasn't just money. It was my future, and he was about to learn that. I moved to my real savings, the ones Greg didn't know about. I'd learned early to keep secrets. When I got my first paycheck at 16, I opened secondary accounts he'd never touch. It was a precaution then, now it was my lifeline. I transferred every dollar into a new account at a different bank, one solely in my name. I changed every password, set up two-factor authentication, and made sure there wasn't a single way he could get in. By the time I was done, my finances were locked tight. I knew Greg too well, he wouldn't stop at this. He'd already spent the $50,000 he stole, no doubt, and soon he'd be back for more. Sure enough, 3 days after I got home, he called. "Hey, bud," he said, like nothing had happened. "You settled in okay?" I played along. "Yeah, I'm better." "What's up?" He sighed, all dramatic. "Things have been tight. That college fund, it wasn't enough to cover everything, you know?" I gritted my teeth. Over $50,000, gone in weeks, and he was already sniffing around again. "I see," I said, keeping my tone even. "So what do you need?" A pause, then he cleared his throat. "I was thinking, you're so good with money, got any other accounts? Just something small to help your old man out?" There it was. He'd stolen from me, lied to my face, and now he was back for more. I let the silence stretch, making him squirm. "I don't know, Dad," I said finally. "Maybe we should talk in person." I could hear the relief in his voice. "That's my boy. Let's sit down, just you and me, no need to get anyone else involved, right?" "Right," I said, a smile creeping onto my face. "Oh, Greg, you have no idea." This wasn't about giving him anything, it was about looking him in the eye when I turned the tables. He thought I was the same kid he could manipulate, the one who'd let him slide. But I'd spent days preparing, gathering every piece of evidence I needed. I wasn't just protecting myself, I was building a case. I leaned back in my chair, staring at my laptop screen. The screenshots, the statements, the proof, it was all there. Greg thought he was untouchable, but he'd underestimated me. He'd taken my future, but I was taking it back, and more. This wasn't over. It was just getting started, and I was ready to make him face the consequences he'd been dodging his whole life. I walked into the quiet cafe where I'd agreed to meet Greg, spotting him right away. He always acted like the most charming guy in the room, but today he looked nervous, his knee bouncing under the table, fingers tapping his coffee cup. I took my time walking over, letting him stew. When I sat down, I gave him a small, polite smile. "So, Dad," I said, folding my hands on the table. "What's so urgent?" He chuckled, trying to play it cool. "Matt, why so formal? Can't a father have coffee with his son?" I tilted my head. "You called me here because you need money." His smile faltered for a split second before he forced it back. "I mean, yeah, things are tight. I figured since you're so responsible, maybe you've got a little set aside." "You mean like a college fund?" I said, my voice steady. His eyes flickered, but he laughed it off. "Come on, don't be like that. I told you, what's done is done. No use dwelling on the past. No use dwelling." He'd robbed me, and now he wanted more, acting like it was nothing. I let the silence stretch, watching him squirm. Finally, I sighed. "You know, Dad, I actually do have some money saved." His whole body relaxed, eyes lighting up. "That's my boy," he said, reaching across the table like we were best friends. "I knew you'd understand." Just a little loan, I'll pay you back. Just like he'd paid back my college fund. I leaned forward, my voice calm. I just have one question. He nodded, eager. Of course, anything. I smiled, pulling out my phone and setting it on the table, screen up. Why don't you just use the money from your secret account? Greg froze, his face going pale. For the first time, he looked scared. What? His laugh was forced. Matt, I don't. I know about the account in your name, I cut in, my voice steady. The one you didn't think I'd find. I know you've been stashing money away for years, even while borrowing from me. And I know that even after stealing my college fund, you've got enough saved to keep yourself comfortable. I leaned back, crossing my arms. So tell me, why should I be the one helping you? His jaw clenched, panic flashing in his eyes. Greg had always talked his way out of trouble, conning people into loans, dodging debts, making excuses. But now, he was trapped. How did you find out? He asked, his voice low. I had help, I said. My Uncle Ray, a lawyer, had helped me track it down. And my grandfather, Greg's own father, had been furious when I told him. It's time he faces real consequences, my grandfather had said, and I agreed. Greg's hand tightened around his coffee cup, his charm slipping. Matt, listen. No, you listen, I interrupted, tapping my phone screen to show an email draft to my bank, detailing his financial abuse. You've got two options. 1. You pay back every cent you stole from me. I don't care if it takes years, I want it all back. He swallowed hard. And the second option? I press charges, I said, my voice cold. Fraud, theft, financial abuse. And once I report you, the IRS will take a close look at your finances, including that secret account. The color drained from his face. He knew I wasn't bluffing. Prison time, audits, he'd lose everything. Greg had always thought he was untouchable, but not this time. I picked up my coffee, took a slow sip, and met his eyes. So, what's it going to be, Dad? For the first time in his life, Greg had no words. I'd never felt more powerful. He'd stolen my future, but now I held his in my hands. And I wasn't letting go until he paid for what he'd done. Greg didn't answer at the cafe, but I didn't expect him to. He just sat there, gripping his cup, his face a mix of anger and fear. I gave him a week to start paying me back, and I meant it. I didn't sit around waiting for him to do the right thing, I knew him too well. Instead, I got to work. First, I sent all my evidence to Uncle Ray. Smart move giving him a deadline, Ray said over the phone. It forces his hand. He'll either pay or panic. I had a feeling it'd be the latter. Next, I called my university's financial aid office. They'd been helpful before, but now, with proof of Greg's abuse, they stepped up. They helped me apply for emergency grants, securing enough to cover one semester. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. I was taking my future back, piece by piece. Greg started calling, right on cue. Day 5, 10:14 a.m., hey, kiddo, just checking in. Hope you're okay. Ignored. Day 5, 3:42 p.m., look, Matt, we should talk. No need to be so drastic. Ignored. Day 6, 9:21 a.m., this is ridiculous. You can't cut your own father off like this. Ignored. By day 7, the desperation broke through. Day 7, 11:56 p.m., please, Matt, I don't have the money. I can't pay you back. Just give me time. I stared at the message, my jaw tight. Time won't magically bring back my money, I texted back. Find a way. His reply was instant, you're being heartless. I laughed. Heartless? He'd stolen from me while I was in a hospital bed, and I was heartless? I turned off my phone and went to sleep. The next morning, Uncle Ray called. Greg showed up at my place last night, he said, his voice sharp. Tried to get me to talk to you. I clenched my jaw. What did you say? Told him he made his bed, now he has to lie in it. Ray paused. He's panicking, Matt. And when Greg panics, he gets sloppy. He wasn't wrong. 2 hours later, my cousin Jake texted me, "Yo, Uncle Greg just called. Tried to get me to co-sign a loan for him." I nearly dropped my phone. Co-sign a loan? Greg was desperate, running out of options fast. He was sinking, trying to drag anyone down with him. I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. Greg thought he could manipulate his way out of this, like always. But he didn't realize how much had changed. I wasn't the kid who'd let him slide anymore. I'd spent days securing my future, grants for school, my savings locked tight. He couldn't touch me now, but he was still trying to claw his way back. Ray called again that afternoon. He's scheming, he warned. Told me he's thinking of leaving town, starting fresh. You know how he is, always running when things get tough. I nodded, not surprised. Greg had done this before. When I was a kid, his failed business left us broke, and he'd moved us overnight to a new city, acting like nothing happened. But this time, he wasn't escaping. Let him run, I said. He can't outrun the law. Ray chuckled. You've got him cornered, Matt. I'm proud of you. His words meant more than I expected. For years, I'd let Greg walk all over me, thinking that's what family did. But Ray showed me I didn't have to take it. I was done being Greg's safety net, done letting him use me. He thought he could keep playing his games, but I was 2 steps ahead. I glanced at my laptop, the email draft to the bank still open. Greg's time was running out. He could beg, scheme, or run, but it wouldn't change a thing. I wasn't just fighting for my money, I was fighting for my freedom. And I wasn't stopping until he faced every consequence he'd earned. The deadline came and went, no payment from Greg. I wasn't surprised, but I was ready. I didn't call or text him. Instead, I sent all my proof, screenshots of his messages, bank statements, evidence of his secret account, to our family group chat. Then I sat back and let the fire spread. The explosion was instant. My phone lit up with messages. Uncle Ray, he stole from his own son? Cousin Jake, didn't he pull something like this with Grandpa years ago? Uncle Tom, I knew Greg was bad with money, but this is insane. Within an hour, the family was in full revolt. Greg had spent years charming them, dodging accountability, but now the truth was out, and no one could ignore it. Greg called, his voice shaking with rage. What the hell did you do? He demanded. I didn't answer, letting the silence stretch. He exhaled sharply. You're ruining me, Matt. They're turning against me, my own family is cutting me off. I shrugged, my voice calm. Sounds like consequences. He kept going, his voice cracking. Matt, please, this is my life you're destroying. I thought about the hospital, lying in that bed, weak, while he stole my future. Now he wanted mercy? You know what's funny, Dad? I said, my voice steady. That's exactly how I felt when you emptied my account. I hung up, his words echoing in my mind. He'd brought this on himself. Greg tried to fight back. He told Ray I was exaggerating, claimed I'd blown it out of proportion to embarrass him. He even went to my cousin Jake, spinning a sob story about how I'd turned the family against him. But the proof I'd sent was ironclad, every lie he told was met with receipts. No one bought his excuses this time. By the end of the week, the family had cut him off completely. Uncle Ray refused to speak to him. Jake blocked his number. Even Uncle Tom, who'd always given Greg the benefit of the doubt, told him to get lost. Greg was alone, his charm useless against the truth. I sat at my desk, scrolling through the group chat. Messages kept coming, some in disbelief, others furious. How could he do this to his own son? I always knew he was shady. For the first time, I felt seen. I'd spent years thinking I had to take Greg's behavior because he was family. But now, the family was on my side, and Greg was the outcast. Ray called me that night. "He's got nothing left," he said, his voice grim. "No one's bailing him out this time." "You did the right thing, Matt." "Thanks, Ray," I said, a weight lifting off my chest. I wasn't sure if I'd gone too far. "You didn't," he said firmly. He needed to face this. "You stood up for yourself, I'm proud of you." I smiled, the guilt I'd been carrying fading. I'd been scared exposing Greg would make me the bad guy, but it hadn't. The family saw the truth, and they chose me. Greg had spent his life manipulating people, thinking he could always talk his way out. But not this time. He'd lost everything: his support, his reputation, his control. I leaned back in my chair, staring at my laptop. The evidence I'd gathered, the grants I'd secured for school, it was all paying off. Greg thought he could break me, but he'd only made me stronger. He was out of moves, out of allies, and I was just getting started. I wasn't fighting for revenge anymore, I was fighting for my future, and I was winning. I glanced at my phone, the group chat still buzzing. Greg was done, and everyone knew it. For the first time in years, I felt free. He couldn't touch me anymore, couldn't take anything else. I'd taken back my power, and I wasn't giving it up again. After the family cut him off, Greg's calls stopped for a while. The silence was unsettling. I knew he wasn't the type to just disappear. But Uncle Ray had already sent a formal demand letter through his law firm. If Greg didn't start paying me back, we'd take him to court. The pressure was on, and I could feel him crumbling. Then, nearly a year later, he called again. I let it ring, my thumb hovering over the decline button, but part of me wanted to hear what he'd say. I answered. "Matt," he breathed, his voice careful, hesitant. I didn't reply. "I heard you graduated," he continued. "That's great. I always knew you were smart." I closed my eyes. He was fishing, testing if I'd softened. I gave him nothing. He cleared his throat. "Listen, I was thinking, maybe we should talk, clear the air. We're still family, right?" I let out a breath, shaking my head. He hadn't changed. Greg wasn't sorry, he was just waiting to see if I'd let him back in. "No, Dad," I said, my voice calm. "We're not." Silence, then anger crept into his tone. "Oh, so that's it? You get your little revenge, and now you think you're better than me?" I smiled. "No. I just don't need you anymore." I hung up, knowing he wouldn't call again. With the money Greg was forced to start repaying, small payments, but steady, I finished my degree. The university, fully aware of my situation, helped me balance part-time work with my studies. It was tough, long nights, extra shifts, but I was free. I wasn't waiting for anyone to fix things for me anymore, and I definitely wasn't waiting for Greg's approval. Greg's life fell apart. The legal action hit hard, he had to sell his car, his fancy watch, anything to scrape by. I heard from Jake that he'd tried to borrow money from old friends, but no one would touch him. His reputation was ruined, his charm useless. Every month, those payments reminded him of me, the son he'd underestimated, the one he couldn't break. Ray called me one afternoon. "He's talking about leaving town again," he said. "Says he needs a fresh start." I laughed. "Let him run. He can't outrun this." Ray chuckled. "You're right. He's got nothing left, Matt. You did good." I leaned back in my chair, a sense of peace settling over me. Greg had spent his life running from consequences, but not this time. No matter where he went, the debt followed him. He'd stolen my future, but I'd taken it back, and made sure he'd never forget it. I thought about that hospital bed, the moment he'd called to admit what he'd done. Back then, I'd been weak, in pain, but I'd found a fire inside me. That fire had carried me through the evidence, the confrontation, the family backlash. Now, I was on the other side, stronger than ever. I'd graduated, landed a job in my field, and built a life Greg had no part in. I glanced at my diploma, framed on the wall. It wasn't just a degree, it was proof I didn't need him. Greg had tried to break me, but he'd only made me tougher. He was a shadow now, a reminder of what I'd overcome. Every payment he sent was a small victory, a sign I'd won. I stood, stretching, the weight of the past finally gone. Greg was out of my life for good, and I was free to live on my terms. I'd fought for myself, and I'd come out on top. He'd lost everything, his family, his reputation, his control. And me? I'd gained it all, my future, my strength, my freedom. A few weeks after that last call from Greg, I got a letter in the mail from Uncle Ray. Inside was a note in his neat handwriting. "I'm proud of you, Matt. You didn't just fight back, you built something stronger from it. That's more than Greg ever did." Tucked beneath was a check for the exact amount Greg had stolen, $50,000. My breath caught. I called Ray immediately. "I can't take this," I said, my voice shaky. "Yes, you can," he said firmly. "And you will. You earned that money once. This isn't charity, it's me making things right." Tears burned my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. He sighed, his voice softening. "I don't want his theft to define you, Matt. I want you to move forward without that weight." He paused, then added, "Promise me one thing." "Anything," I said. "Promise you'll never let anyone, family or not, take advantage of you again." I closed my eyes, the words sinking deep. "I promise." And I meant it. With Ray's check and the payments Greg was forced to send, I paid off my remaining school fees and started fresh. I landed a good job in my field, a tech startup where my skills shone. My bosses respected me, my coworkers became friends, and for the first time I felt like I belonged. I bought a small apartment downtown, a place that was mine, every brick a symbol of what I'd built on my own. Greg, meanwhile, had nothing. I heard from Jake that he'd moved to a new city, but it didn't matter. His reputation followed him, old friends wouldn't talk to him, new ones learned the truth fast. Every month, those payments came, a reminder of the son he'd betrayed. He'd lost everything, his family, his charm, his control, while I'd gained it all. One evening, I sat in my new place, sipping coffee, when Ray came over. We stood on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. "You've come so far," he said, his voice warm with pride. "Watching you take back your life, it's been incredible." I smiled, my chest tight with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Ray. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." He clapped a hand on my shoulder. "I just gave you a nudge. You did the hard part, chose strength over bitterness, freedom over guilt. You built this, Matt." His words hit deep. I'd spent years thinking family meant taking the hurt, letting Greg use me because that's what you do. But Ray showed me family could be different: support, trust, respect. He was my real family now, along with the friends I'd made, the life I'd created. I thought about Greg, out there somewhere, watching from a distance. He'd see my success, my job, my home, my happiness, and know he had no part in it. That was the real victory. Not the money, not the legal win, but the freedom. I didn't need him anymore, didn't carry his weight. He'd tried to break me, but I'd come back stronger, better, whole. I looked out at the skyline, the lights stretching endless. "The best revenge isn't the money," I said, more to myself than Ray. "It's this, living well, knowing he can't touch me." Ray nodded, a small smile on his face. "Exactly." I took a deep breath, the cool air filling my lungs. The past had shaped me, but it didn't own me anymore. Greg was a lesson, a chapter I'd closed. I'd fought for my future, and I'd won, on my terms, with my strength. Now, I was free to live, to grow, to be me, without his shadow holding me back. As the city buzzed below, I felt a peace I hadn't known before. I'd earned this, every moment of joy, every ounce of freedom. Greg had lost everything, and I'd gained it all. The greatest revenge was my happiness, and I was going to savor every second of it.